Okay, citric acid cycle. So it's the second stage of cellular respiration. So basically what happens if oxygen is present, and we'll talk about later on about what happens at the pyruvate stage if oxygen is not present, okay, anaerobic respiration. But if oxygen is present, then basically aerobic respiration proceeds and the pyruvate molecule is broken down, okay, so it's broken down into carbon dioxide. So let's say, so we're going to start with, we've got our citric acid cycle, okay? So when we talk about our citric acid cycle, all that basically means constantly produced. So it's going through in a cycle, a continuous cycle, okay? So citric acid cycle begins, as I said, if oxygen is present. Okay, so we require oxygen for this process, whereas glycolysis, okay, we could actually add this to our notes. Oxygen does not need to be present. Okay, so cycle begins if oxygen is present, okay? It's going to lead to further ATP production, and we're away from the cytoplasm now, we're away to the mitochondria, okay? So it occurs in the matrix of the mitochondria. When we move on to the next stage and we talk about the electron transport chain, that occurs in the mitochondria as well, but in a different section called the cristae. All right, so let's do this. So we'll go back to where we left off for glycolysis. So here we have our pyruvate, okay? And essentially what's happening is, if I get the right colour here, okay, we are breaking this 3-carbon molecule down into a acetyl group, okay, and our acetyl group is 2 carbons. So that tells us we've lost a carbon, which therefore means that this process CO2 is produced. The oxygen that's already in the system will join on to the carbon, which will produce carbon dioxide, okay? What's also happening is we're also removing hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions again are going to bind onto the coenzyme NAD, which is going to be passed on to the electron transport chain. So we've got this acetyl group, and essentially what happens is this acetyl group combines with a, wrong colour, coenzyme called coenzyme A, okay, and it's going to make a compound called acetyl coenzyme A. So it's almost like a wee kind of separate cycle inside our citric acid cycle as such, okay? So coenzyme A binds onto this acetyl group, which therefore creates coenzyme A. And this is where we start going into our actual citric acid cycle, okay? Because this acetyl coenzyme A is going to join with oxaloacetate, okay? So this coenzyme A, oxaloacetate, okay, are both going to join together, and that's going to give us our citrate, which is basically our citric acid. Okay? But what happens is the cycle continues. So this in itself is going to keep on going round. As I said, it's a constantly produced cycle. Okay? So we have our 2-carbon compound joining together with a 4-carbon compound, so oxaloacetate, 4-carbon compound joins with the acetyl coenzyme A, which therefore gives us citrate, which is a 6-carbon compound. And for us to go, and of course it's going to be intermediate compounds, just like we talked about here for glycolysis, okay, at different stages. And again, as I said before, it's incredibly complex. Cellular respiration, as I say, has many, many steps, and we give you the basic information. So again, there's different steps here, okay, but we know that if this is a 6-carbon and it is changed to a 4-carbon, then that means there's going to be a release of CO2, okay. We also know there's approximately 2 ATP also produced during the citric acid cycle, okay, and we know that there's further hydrogen ions released, okay. So this, in essence, this is like an extension of glycolysis. This is your end of glycolysis. We therefore lose carbon dioxide and some hydrogen ions and electrons. And sorry, we lose our carbon to make carbon dioxide and our hydrogen ions and electrons to create an acetyl group, adds on to a coenzyme A, and this is the start of our citric acid cycle. So citric acid cycle. Okay, so first stage, glycolysis, second stage, citric acid cycle, and now we're going to tie up where all of these hydrogen ions and associated electrons travel to electron transport chain, our final part of our journey.